Will there be a housing crash in 2023 or even next year? Today, we are going to take out my crystal ball and find out. Just kidding. I wish. And if any of you guys have a crystal ball, please let me know. But what we're going to do today is I want to take a look at an article that I found interesting. And of course, we're just going to compare to what's going on in Phoenix and talk about what the future might hold without a crystal ball. Welcome, everyone. I'm Caitlin McKegg. I'm a real estate broker here in Phoenix, Arizona. The great housing crash of 2023 that wasn't. I had to share this. I just thought it was pretty funny because last year, all that anyone could talk about is how 2023 was going to be a bloodbath. And here we are, mid-August 2023, and prices have only risen through this year, at least as far as Phoenix is concerned. Now, I'm not saying things can't change, but 2023 has not been a housing crash. So let's see what this says. First of all, I am going to say some of this is from Zillow economists, which I don't know if they are the best source to listen to because if you remember, I think it was in 2021, their home buying process went out of business because their algorithms were not valuing properties correctly. I don't remember all the details, but it wasn't good. So Zillow economists may not be the most solid source. That said, let's see what they have to say. Housing market has avoided a crash that some experts had feared. Home prices that surged during the pandemic fell earlier this year under pressure from high mortgage interest rates, but have bounced back, easing fears of a real estate bubble. Zillow predicts prices will go back to rising steadily, calling for a 5.5% gain in 2023. As much as I don't love Zillow predictions, they could be right. So let's look at what we're doing with pricing here in Phoenix. The monthly median sales price, pink line is 2023. We're at about 434 right now. We started the year at 410. And so that increase is putting us, if we stay around this range, about 5.5%. If we end the year around here, roughly, I think 432,000 is about 5.5%. So if we hang in this area, their prediction could be right for Phoenix. And then you can see last year, the peak of where we're at 475. This article goes on to talk about how the home prices, which fell earlier this year, have resumed rising in May and were just 1% below the peak they hit in 2022. For Phoenix, that is not true. We are not at just 1% below that, although we've gotten close, and then we'll see, if this continues to go flat, then we'll be matching where we were at last October by that point. But who knows? So they talk about how the housing market has been upended in a way that looks nothing like a classic bubble bursting. Ultra low mortgage rates and high demand for housing fueled the frenzied buying and sent prices surging 45% between February 2020 and June of 2022. And last year, when everyone was saying that not everyone, but when many people were saying that there was going to be a crash, there were also many people saying there was just going to be a correction. And I think that's kind of what we've seen this year is more of a price correction, still strength in the market, and a very big slowdown in terms of number of transactions and sales taking place. A lot of that due to rate hikes. On my Monday market updates, I talk a lot about rate hikes or the interest rate and where we're at. So if that kind of information is interesting to you, make sure you check those out on Monday. So this talks about how rates have gone to 6 and 7% range. Higher mortgage rates have reduced demand for buyers. We know all of this. Many home sellers don't want to sell to trade in their sub 4% fixed mortgage rates for today's high ones. We've talked about that on this channel. But with few houses for sale, buyers don't have much leverage to demand lower prices, and that's left the housing market in a state of gridlock. I've talked about this too. Our number of sales and transactions here in the Phoenix area is extremely low. compared to where we've been in previous years. You have to go all the way back to 2014 to see something kind of similar in terms of sales rate. And you have to figure we have more homes available now just because of new construction as compared to 2014. That was almost 10 years ago. And our population is larger, and we still have lower transactions than where we were at that point. And then, of course, if you compare to 2021, 2022, we are much, much lower than where we had been in the past. So that is very true for Phoenix, a much lower transaction volume. They talk about how prices have fallen some, especially in certain overheated markets, but nationwide, it's been more of a correction than an implosion. And Phoenix being one of those, more of a correction. Instead of a housing crash, the real estate business is enjoying a construction boom, as home builders see an opportunity to satisfy the demand for housing that's not being met by resale homes. And we're definitely seeing the lack of resale homes here in Phoenix, and we're seeing new construction continue. But let's look at those numbers here in Phoenix too. I did find, before we get there, this article, July new home purchase mortgage applications increased 35.5%. So we are seeing that demand for new construction go up. This is from the Mortgage Bankers Association. Compared to a year ago, there's more applications for new construction. Now, keep in mind, a year ago is around the time that everything really, really slowed down last summer. Things came to a halt and this correction started. And so seeing this uptick is not that bizarre, but it is likely more for new construction than we would have seen last year, even had we not had the correction, I would assume. I think just inventory is so low for the resale homes. So in Phoenix, new home sales year to date, we're at about 11,636. Last year at this time, 11,386. So, a little bit more on the new home side, but nothing significant. But are builders trying to build more? Let's look at permits for that. Single family permits year to date is lower than we were at last year and the year before. And what happened with single family permits, or just, new construction permits, especially focused on single family, not necessarily multifamily, builders really pulled back last year when things started to change and slow down. They did not want to be in the situation that they were in 2008, where they overbuilt and couldn't sell those homes. So there was a lot of pullback on number of permits that they were future development that they had possibly planned to do. They really paused on a lot of that. So this showing a number that's much lower than where we were at last year at this time. That may be the repercussions of that pullback. It might still be, just the lack or some fear on the builder side. This is all kind of my assumption. I'm not sure why it's lower right now, especially knowing that demand is coming back. But my guess is that after last year was a little shocking. Things have been pretty slow. Builders are probably being cautious. But when we don't have resale inventory to sell buyers, they might start to see an uptick in their demand. So we'll have to follow that. But all of this to say, you guys, I'm not saying there can't be a crash. I'm not saying that there never will be a change in the real estate market, but I do think there should be an expiration date on how long you can predict a crash for, because everyone who's been saying it since 2019, we have yet to see this crash. Again, not saying it can't happen, but it's hard to predict exactly what is going to happen. And I think what we've seen over the last year is more of a correction than a crash, but anything could change. So that's why we keep an eye on everything going on in the market. If there's anything that my team can help you with, if you want to set up a discovery call to talk about your situation, we have a link to do that. We also have a link to just get an instant home valuation and search our MLS for homes for sale. So make sure to take advantage of that if you're interested. And if you want a deep dive into what's going on in Phoenix, every Monday I am here with a Monday market update. So thanks for joining me, you guys. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back on Monday. I'm Caitlin McKegg with the Desert Dreamers team.